Start. Welcome everyone, I'm Blake from Seelbach.com. Today I'm here at the St. Augustine Distillery here in St. Augustine, Florida. I'm here with the distillers, head of production. So thank you for being here, guys.
Thanks for coming.
So you can go ahead and introduce yourself and kind of talk about
Sure.
what you do here.
My name's Lucas Smith. I'm the head of production.
My name's Daniel Joslin, and I'm the head distiller here.
And pretty much he and I, we've been friends for our whole adult life, and now we run this distillery together.
And don't let the beard fool you, not brothers. I'm sure you get asked that at least 3 times a day.
Probably since he was about 15 years old.
Yeah.
We were related. He used to have longer hair and more beard to go around not tipping at places.
Yeah,
Lucas thought he was
you
big.
signed it. Yeah, Lucas.
Oh, hey, Lucas, hey, what's up?
Yeah. Good to see you. That guy Lucas is a real jerk. No, cool. Well, thanks for being on, guys. And, basically we just try to break down where the products come from. By the time this video comes out, the St. Augustine products will be available on Seelbach. So we want to dive in a little bit deeper and, get into what makes St. Augustine different from all the other bourbons, gins, vodkas, rums on the market, because you kind of have a broad spectrum of spirits that you offer. So if you've never been to the St. Augustine Distillery and you're in the area or traveling, it's definitely one you want to stop by. They just got awarded the best craft, or I believe it was the best distillery tour in the country for 2018. So North America, that's a big deal. I think Buffalo Trace was the winner the prior year, so that's not a craft award. That's just all distillers. So really big deal. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
Let's kind of talk about what got you in the spirits business. So, Lucas, do you want to go first?
Yeah, really. I've done a lot of different jobs my whole life. I've been here for almost 5 years now. I came in on barrel 8, I think. And really, I just saw an opportunity for a career here in St. Augustine. This is a tourist-driven town, and there's not a lot of different, production type work or manufacturing or anything really that's, gives you an opportunity to be creative and make something and physically work. A lot of it's all, computer graphic design driven. Just
Video
never,
podcast.
I never got that into it, sitting behind the screen. I never had the patience for it. But I saw an opportunity here, and the former head of production, Brandon Wheatley, gave me a job, and I took it and ran with it.
Now, did y'all come in together?
No, I started about 8 months after Lucas did at barrel number 100, and I was pretty much the same. I was working as a manager in Atlanta for a supermarket and moved back down, originally from here, born and raised. And he had the opportunity, and he said, "Hey, you want a job at the distillery? I'll probably get you one." And here I am 4 years later.
So, all right, well, let's do it. And that first day, because no real background in producing spirits, but you did have a very good distiller at the time, who I think you learned a lot from.
Yeah.
What's that first day walking in? Just
overwhelming.
One word, it's overwhelming. You walk in and you see these giant stills, pipes and valves going everywhere, and you think, oh God, how am I going to learn this?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you're like, that's how it works. That's really easy. That's not that difficult to understand. I get that. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And, the biggest thing is, one thing that we both had the ability to do is if you're going to get into the distilling industry, you better know how to work.
Yeah.
And by work, I mean you're going to sweat, and push yourself, and work to exhaustion and dehydration most days, especially down here in Florida. But if you can't multitask, if you can't do a lot of things at once and be aware of all the things and dangers that you're dealing with, you're going to have a hard time in this industry.
There's a lot of moving parts. I guess a good example of that is, we're recording this at 10 a.m. today, and you had to go change shirts for this video. The day has barely started. You're already filled up with and I assume the same for you. You walk in, and at least he had an 8-month head start, so you can make him more of a guinea pig. But and now, once you kind of get that process down, is it like, hey, just start on the vodka production, or you're full-fledged?
No, it was everything all at the same time, because what we mainly make is the bourbon and whiskey. We mash 7 days a week, and in the meantime, we'll try and fit in vodka runs and rum runs, but all the while still managing and cooking whiskey. So
interesting. So
and the gin runs separate still, which is good. It's easier for us to manage that. We don't have to worry about cleaning everything, back flushing and all that every run, because we're not going from vodka to gin in the same still.
Yeah. That's a good segue into the production. So you're mashing 7 days a week for the bourbon currently.
Yep.
Now, how big are the mash?
They're 750 gallons. They're 850 gallons, but we make a 750 gallon mash.
Okay. And then, so are you distilling 7 days a week?
Yep. We strip every day. We strip 7 days a week, and we run a spirit run every other day. Unless we run every day because we're running, say, vodka, and then we'll just transition right back into whiskey or rum, and then vodka, then whiskey.
So you can kind
Right.
Switch it
Still
up
never
based on
gets
We
cold.
try and keep the stills hot. The stills aren't
I was
hot.
gonna say,
We're
yeah,
not making
yeah.
liquor and we're not making money.
nobody's making money if those stills cool down. So on that, so you go 750 fermentation. What ABV is that coming out at? Or flows
What's up? Out of the ferment or off the strip?
out of the fermenter?
It's around
8.
8%.
Okay. So then we have like an 8% beer. First stripping run, what's it coming off?
It'll come off
65.
Okay.
65 proof.
It's kind of an average.
Yeah.
65. We'll get about
So then,
175, 200 gallons of low wines.
okay, so you got about 200 gallons of low wines, and that's the interesting thing is a lot of people don't realize is, you know, they get the mash bill and they get it coming off the still, but kind of that middle part of it. Yeah, a lot of people have a stripping run, or if you hear double distilled,
Right.
usually that's what that means. So, what's the importance of doing that first distillation, that first stripping run? Is it to just get a batch that's a little easier to work with, or you just get more impurities off with the second distillation?
That's the main
That's
part.
fine.
Yeah, like, you know, we run pot stills up there, not columns, so that's why we have low wines.
Right.
You know, they can't separate the heads and the tails. They're going to pull it off at this proof, and they're going to constantly pull it off and pull it off. You know,
Yeah,
make
they
a week,
put
make
column
it a year
stills.
in one day.
Column stills is mash in, spirit out. You know, we put mash in a strip still, then we get low wines, and then we redistill the low wines into what we call a high wine. And we only take the heart, which goes to the barrel. The heads and the tails, we don't use it all.
So then that final run, you know, you've got about 150 to 200 gallons at 65 proof. What's it coming off the still at?
We'll end up taking 2 of those.
Yeah.
It'll take
Okay.
2 strip runs to
Two
fill our
strip runs.
spirit still.
Gotcha.
And we'll pull that off. And the final run, it'll end up about 140, 142.
It comes off at around 158, 160 proof. At the beginning, you get the heads starting.
And now you've got the heads.
Yeah,
Start
start
low boilers and start coming over.
I guess down or up a little bit in proof as
It starts at its highest proof and then it crashes or drops
Okay.
slowly.
The highest proof alcohol molecules are the lightest, so they take the least amount of heat to get over.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes sense. And then so we've talked about the heads and the tails on this a little bit before with other distillers, but give us an idea of why it's so important to not bring in too much of the heads or too much of the tails, and you really want that part.
Well, for us, one huge part of it is because of our environment. You know, you'll never get rid of heads in the barrel, and you'll never get rid of tails in the barrel. People will tell you they blow off. Some of it may. It will not all blow off.
Majority.
It can't. It just can't. It's
Maybe
it's
after
not what
like 20
happens.
years.
It's not what happens in the chemicals reaction. That's just not what happens. So for us, because we have such a short aging period, right? Because it never cools off here. It's always hot. So we're constantly extracting and aging, reacting, extracting over and over again. So it's very important for us to remove heads and tails because once we put it in there, we don't have time for those things to happen because it's so rapid that we need it to be pure spirit that, you know, that we would drink it straight through without a cringe.
We will make larger heads cuts and larger tails cuts probably than most other distilleries because of that reason. We'll say we don't go until it's parts. You know, it's like leave that
Pure, not like, hey, is it or is it
right.
not?
Yeah. If it is, if it's not, then it's not ready. You know,
Yeah.
we'll wait 5 more minutes because sometimes that's all it takes. You know,
So-
it
so
might be just
you're-
another gallon comes over and then it's there.
And it's-
You know.
So that's you're sipping, tasting, or smelling, tasting.
Mm-hmm.
You know, kind of watching the proof. I guess it's not an exact.
Yeah,
No,
we
no,
have a
Hey,
way.
after 30 minutes,
Right.
you know, I need to go.
We know there's a window. We start distills at 6 a.m. in the morning, and around 8:30, 9 o'clock, you should be.
You know, you're starting to come.
Right. As
Yeah.
long as you're running the still the same every time. We always run it the same. We try and run it the same.
Yeah.
Every time.
Assume that the consistency is the biggest factor
Right.
at the
Yeah.
end of the
Because
day.
if somebody walks by and just cranks that steam vent off, you're done. Your run's over.
First, they're
everything's
tour, and then so when you get into the tail, same thing. Then hey, is it starting to come over? What do you? I mean, what are even the flavor? No, is it more just that?
Tails are kind of leathery.
Okay.
But it's stale. It's like it's like
Right.
a wet towel that's stuck in the bottom of the laundry pile. It's
Not stuff I want to pull out of my bourbon tasting notes.
And the heads are just really aggressive and they smell like cleaning products.
Smell like Band-Aids,
Right.
hospitals.
I was talking with a guy out of Grand Traverse, and he was saying, I'm like, so what do you do? And I think it was on the tails they would redistill for something, but on the heads he's like, I washed my car with it, I cleaned all this up.
Yeah.
Apparently it's a very good solution for cleaning stuff up. But now on the tails, are y'all redistilling any of that, throwing it into the next stage around this?
We'll save enough and we'll make what they call the queen share out of it. So
Okay.
we'll just redistill that and throw it. And we'll engage our flakes on our spirit still, and then we'll just take a small mineral out and then we kind of stick that away and use it for
And
like
that's
fun
okay.
types of
I mean,
things.
it might be something that we mix into a larger batch, or it might be something you
It's
hold
all
for
there.
its own release.
Yeah, it's
And by the time you make a queen share, you've already
It's really
put
neutral.
double energy into making it, so you kind of want to hold it back and wait,
just to see
put
what
some value on it.
happens.
It comes out it's very fruity, it's strange, it's a different thing.
It's really
It's good.
Yeah.
But so we get to wait and see what
That's
comes
interesting.
of
Now,
it.
has there been a queen share barrel that's made it?
We have a 2-year plus one now, because we started doing it, because we would redistill our tails in our spirit run in the beginning when Brendan was here, but now we don't stop doing all that. So,
On the one question about the distillation, so you said the plates, on that you're utilizing the plates. Are you using those for the regular whiskey
No.
run? Okay, so you're wide open.
right,
Yeah, because we want that full pot.
Yeah.
right.
We don't want it cleaned up and made into a neutral neat spirit. We want the full body of it.
And that's where, if you're watching this and thinking, are they talking about dinner plates? Or are they talking about, so if you look at a pot still, even a column still will have the same thing. You usually see those windows, there's a plate there, so y'all correct me if I'm wrong, but it causes rectification. So essentially you're redistilling at each plate.
Right.
So then
There's
the
little
vapor
bubble
has to
caps
go
in
up.
there. It's just a cap with a tube inside, and it'll flood that little plate. So all the vapors, they'll distill through there, turn to a vapor. Only the lighter ones will go up, and the heavier ones just continue to fall back down.
Gotcha.
So you'll have a super high proof at the top.
Really, you're just refining in that
Yeah.
high proof. But in this case, you're saying, hey, we know how we're going to run the still. Let's let it all come over
Right.
at first, and then because y'all don't have like a doubler or anything.
No, because we were trained in French traditions, and French traditions typically are limbic pot stills, and there's a way to run it that way, and it's all about your speed, how much you're giving it, where your cap temp is, and how you control your flow rate. And so we've always based our distillations off that training.
The cap temp being
What
very
the
top of
vapor
your actual
yard,
cap. Yeah, so what, just for my own question at this point, it's really digging into the rabbit hole, but what kind of temps, just, you want to be between that boiling point of water and alcohol?
Well, your vapors, your lightest ones are going to start coming over around 172.
Okay.
Then a cut will happen around between 180 to 182, and then we collect until our proof drops.
Right.
That'll be.
It's all based on flavor. We don't really. The cap temp can be whatever it is, as long as we're running that still grade. We get what we want off the still. Like, I never make a cut based on a cap temp or like a time of day. It's like
Or
let
just
it
ready
go.
to go home.
Unless you got to get out and watch the Gators beat Tennessee.
Yeah. Hey, I'm just glad we can say that after breaking a 31-year streak. So it's been a disappointing year if they lost to Tennessee too. But that's beside the point. So we've talked a lot about the bourbon and whiskey. Let's get into the aging a little bit. What proof is it going into the barrel?
We entry proof at 110.
Okay.
With our 53 gallons. We had put a bunch of 25-gallon barrels away in the beginning. We put those away at 125. But we're not doing 25 gallons anymore because they're double the work.
Yeah, and that's how we came to our double cast, right? They wanted barrels faster. Well, we didn't need smaller barrels to get it faster in Florida. This is all things we're discovering now. I'd say between you and I, we got more knowledge of what happens to whiskey and barrels than anybody. in this state. What happens in this state too? You know, not everywhere else, but in Florida. So yeah, we put it away at 125 and we let it extract it crazy.
Yeah.
We pulled it out, put it in the used whiskey barrels, and then let it continue aging. That's where we got our double cask.
And so that's the first bourbon release, the double cask. And now transitioning to a new release. We'll talk about that.
Yep. We're currently bottling our last.
Our last double cask is going down the line today.
But then we're gonna go into Florida straight. It's gonna all be aged 3 years, all aged in 53-gallon barrels.
And 88 proof.
So all 53 gallons, 3+ years from Florida.
Yeah.
True Florida bourbon. Well, I mean, I think y'all are the oldest Florida bourbon to begin with, but
Right, yeah, I think so.
pushing that envelope even further down, that's interesting. It's exciting too.
It's absolutely some of the best. I have some in the lab there we can taste.
We'll do a sneak peek later.
Absolutely.
So we talked a lot about the bourbon, but you also do the vodka, the gin. Let's talk about the gin a little bit. So, and if you're watching this, I'll post some other pictures, maybe a little more video of. You have to see the grinder where all the botanicals go through. So it's a hand grinder. You know, you must have like forearms and biceps that are just massive at this point of grinding all that. So let's talk about that whole process a little bit. How that gets made.
Right. So all of our vodka and our gin, we talk about gin. It's all cane neutral spirit based is what we use. A lot of gin producers will put their herbs in a basket, hang them in the column, do different things like that. We hand grind our herbs each day. We do not grind our juniper. We put that in whole, and we don't macerate it. We throw it straight in the still and turn it on when it's done. We throw all the herbs.
Maceration period, just a day up.
It gets the 20-minute heat up time. That's the extent of its maceration.
Interesting.
And because we had done some trials where we left it longer, it just pulled over too much. We dialed back our juniper while we're making it because we wanted it to be citrus forward.
And you don't want it to be a perfume.
Right.
You don't want it to be a silver.
Right.
That's interesting.
That can happen just from proofing.
You can get soapy flavors.
You can get acidification if you proof your spirit too quickly.
Now, okay, so let's, because I've heard that's always an issue with bourbon and other whiskeys is they'll let it sit, they'll slowly proof it down. But I've never heard that with gin.
Yeah, gin's actually a bigger problem.
Okay.
Especially depending on what type of gin you make or how you make it. Ours,
oily.
So many oils are pushed over
because it just whatever that water seizes those molecules up.
Right. Well, as soon as it'll drop out of proof, like when you let your oils drop out of suspension, alcohol's holding it in suspension. When it drops that out, if it happens too quickly, you'll get tons of clouding and you'll get a lot of soapy flavors.
Huh. That's really interesting.
That's
we proof ours as slow as we can here. Luckily, we've gotten so far ahead with some of our production that we have the ability to continue to do that. And it really shows. Just slowly add more, like 10 gallons a day or 10.
So how big is a normal batch of gin?
We make our still will make 50 cases a day. It's a 35 or 60 gallon still, and we'll pull off around 35 wine gallons, and then it'll be about 58 proof gallons. So it works out to, with our proof at 94, it works out to be about 50 cases a day.
So you just put
four runs together.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And then we'll put those into a 250 gallon tank, and then we'll just slowly add water. We'll put water up on our loft, and we'll just gravity feed it through an itty bitty hose and just let it drip.
Like it's just siphon. It's almost like what's the siphon coffee or something?
Right.
Oh yeah, cold drip.
Yeah. It's kind of like
not that fast.
If we have it our way, yeah.
Yeah. That's really interesting. No, you did say it was very citrus forward gin.
Right.
Do you release the botanicals that are used, or can you give us an insight?
We use bitter orange peel. We use some orange ribbons. We use lemon peel, and let's see, what's the other one of them? I think we use
Lemon, orange.
The other one's a secret.
Yeah, that's
if I can't remember.
Whenever I can't remember, so I'm like, well, this is proprietary information, so I can't.
But angelic root, licorice, cassia, coriander, star anise,
really, that's what I love about it. It's the kind of that mix of some of the spicy from the star anise and making sure and all that, and then the citrus really balances well. You know, when we think about being hot in Florida, not everybody wants barrel proof or hot whiskey, and with no ice or nothing. So the gin has been a small kind of crossover for myself over the past few years. Now you also make a rum.
Absolutely.
So now, and I guess one thing we should have said at the beginning is pretty much all the grain, or at least most of it, you're sourcing from local farms.
Yeah, everything except for the barley.
Okay.
From Florida, comes from north central, north.
The rye as well.
We don't have any rye here.
Oh, that's right, because you're a wheated. Well,
Yeah.
Let's talk about the bourbon mash bill to start with. So,
Okay.
wheated bourbon.
Right. It's 60% corn, 22% malted barley. So technically, it's a malted bourbon. That's the highest, second highest ingredient, and then 18% breadwinner wheat.
That's
you know, we wanted the owners, when they first made this mash bill, you know, they were big fans of Stranded Hands 6 years ago, Maker's Mark. And they wanted something that was approachable to people, and I think Mike was also quite a Scotch drinker, so he wended his way more to barley. And so, you know, you get that more chocolate notes. And to be honest, as far as like plain distillates are concerned, corn distillate, wheat, and barley's the most delicious.
Yeah, that's. I
You're
would
drinking
like
a
to,
white distillate.
I would like to disagree, but corn juice is not a great.
Hey man, it's fine. It's fine if you're looking to get wild. But
Yeah. That's interesting. Which I think what balances it is there is a lot of sweetness. There's a lot of chocolateness, and you need a lot of that because you're getting a lot of the wood extraction here in Florida. So it kind of gives you a good balance of everything. So it was 60, 22, and then what's that, 18? Do my math real quick. So the barley's coming from out of state, but corn and wheat are coming
from Florida.
Interesting. So now back to the rum.
Yep.
Obviously, cane.
It's molasses.
It is molasses. Okay.
One of the highest grades molasses.
Molasses.
It's just delicious.
Yeah.
Even in molasses form, pour it on pancakes, whatever you want to do. It's really, really good. And we ferment that here on site, so we'll put it in our mash cooker, and we'll add a bunch of water to it, and we'll get it to the bricks where we want, and we just pitch yeast and pump it over to the fermentation tank. And 4 days later, we'll make a strip run with that as well, and then we'll get a low wine with the rum, and then we'll throw it into our spirit rectifying still. It's 2 strips to a spirit run, and then we run. Sometimes we engage plates with rum because it's kind of fun. You can do interesting things with rum that you know you don't really want to mess with your flavor profile, say your bourbon or anything like that. Rum's pretty fun that we can pull off some pretty cool stuff. And we made some rum runs last week or the week before that were just mind-blowing.
They're 150 proof, drink it like water.
Really? So now, what are you changing up on that? Just some plates, and I mean, it's fermentation.
Fermentation. A lot of it's all just from our improved practices already.
You know, what temp do you hold that fermentation? You know, then it
Which
depends
is
on
really,
if it's 110 degrees in there, we're going to cool it down a little more. You know, in the wintertime when we make run, we'll hold our temps a little higher, and you try to find this fine.
That's an interesting thing, and I know especially in rum, you know, the lower temperature, the little more of the funkiness you get. Is that, have you seen some of that, or is it, I have it backwards? But it,
if we were to like leave it, you know, a lot of people to get that funkiness, that no-go, they'll leave it in the fermenters for extra days.
Right. Once it zeroes
they
out,
want their secondary fermentations to happen. Because when that happens, they make it up with a couple other things that are going to be a bit different that give you that funk of rum that you'll see in agriculture and things like that. You know, but
you don't have as much of that, which is,
I think we got the right amount really, because I love agricole rums. I prefer drinking them over any other rums. And then we also really want to put out an overproof white rum. One, because bartenders love it. Two,
sign me up
we
for a case.
Right. Because, like I said, when we were drinking it last week off the still, we were like, why don't we bottle this?
Yeah.
It's just because
St. Augustine 151 is
right.
Another great thing though about our rum, one, I know it's gotten better since we've been making it, but something we do and came up with, created something we call a redneck Solera. All right, so rather than pulling amounts out and tracking each of those volumes and reporting that to our software and watching it on the TTB and recording those and reading that around. Right, exactly. And I told you I don't really like sitting at the computer, but we do it because we have to. What we do is say our batch contains 10 53-gallon barrels. Of those 10, there's 5 that we pull, right? So we'll pull it all, we'll put it all together. And every time we take half of that batch and put it back in barrels. So if we pull out 500 gallons, we're only going to bottle 250 gallons.
And then the other 250.
So every bit of rum we make now has some of our very first rum in it that we ever produced because we pulled it, put it together, and put it back in.
And the rum's going into the used bourbon barrels.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
All 53s.
Actually, most of our rum program runs on 25s right now.
Nice.
We've been using them so long, they're super neutral rum barrels. And then we have to reintroduce, we just now introduced new 53s to it.
Which
Because it'll pull so much wood, we don't want it.
And it gives you a pretty consistent, you know, it's not like, hey, if we dump this one barrel, we're getting super oaky rum or anything like that. That's really interesting. Now, anything after, any flavorings or anything after?
No dosage,
No, we don't have sugar,
no flavoring.
It's got enough on its own.
Yeah.
It really smells like grape soda.
It's got a really good sweetness to it. You know, it's not one that it's almost sticky to the, you know,
Right.
but it just a really good mellow taste. I mean, I've put it over ice before, just with an orange zest or something, and it does really good in cocktails. So
Very good.
that is a nice
I like to
thing.
put it in the blender by the pool.
Yeah, you can't beat that. One question on, you mentioned the bricks. It's one thing that's never really come up here. So bricks is essentially the amount of sugar in the liquid.
Right.
So you're targeting a specific level of sugar because you know that'll create the amount of alcohol, or I mean, are you just kind of monitoring that with like a little telescope thing? Or?
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay.
With a racometer.
Yeah, sounds a lot better than the little telescope thing.
With the sugar side.
Yeah.
Really, yeah, we haven't set it that. It's kind of built that way and scaled that way according to the size of what we have. But also, if your brick contents are too high, your yeast is going to struggle to survive.
There's too much.
Right.
At that point.
It's
Okay.
too
You
much
want
work.
the perfect
It's too
environment.
dense, and you're trying to make a happy place for it to swim and party with his friends.
Yeah.
You don't want it to be like this group pack with 100,000 people in here. Nobody be able to move. You're like, I can't get to the bar, you know. And then you don't want it to be completely empty because then it's just
Then it's
boring.
so
You're not
boring.
doing anything, right? You want that like perfect balance.
Distilling is the
Party
ultimate
time.
metaphor of life.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay, so a little bit about the vodka. So
Like I said, it's
Very
our
neutral.
cane neutral spirit. We source that here from Florida. It's a Florida product, and it's delicious on its own. And what we'll do is we'll just meter out, you know, a certain amount of proof gallons. We'll proof it down, and we'll put it into our still. We'll redistill that. We'll make a heads and a tails cut, and then we take the hearts, and that's what goes into our bottle. We proof that down to 80 proof. That's what kept our lights on and our AC kicking in here for the first 2 years before we ever released the bourbon.
that's a a lot of people, they're like, oh, vodka, I don't want to hear about that. I'm like, vodka's still the #1 selling spirit in the country. So
And what we didn't do is purchase bourbon barrels from somewhere else, rebottle it, or bottle it, labeled it, called it our own, or said, you know, that this was from us, and you know, we never did that in the beginning. So it's been
And we were lucky to have the capital and the time to be able to wait on it.
the two biggest things that can sink a distillery, capital and time. Absolutely. When you're talking about having to get a product out and it's doing these forecasts, I'm sure
oh yeah.
stuff y'all live with every day. Well, how much bourbon do you think we're going to sell in 2022?
Right. As much as we can.
Yeah.
All of it?
We're making
Yeah.
as much as we can today. There's hopefully all of it in the down. We try and put our 45 barrels away here, 45, 50 degrees.
So you're cranking some bourbon out the doors. Then.
That's only half of what they want.
Yeah. So new still coming soon is what
Right.
you're
Second shift coming.
The second shift,
Second.
fermenters, and a bunch of other things that would have to happen for it to get there.
Nice.
But,
Now let's talk about kind of some products upcoming. What's next? I mean, it sounds like there is some fermentation expansion going to be coming, as well as new products. So the Saint, which is a new product. So tell us about what that is.
that product has 3 old bourbons in it. It was a blended 25 gallons and 53s.
It's
25s have moved.
It's like a double cask.
It was
So
some remnants.
essentially a
It was
double cask.
some remnants of double cask and some other 53s.
So we added to it,
Um,
rounded out.
And we put all those together, and we put it back to a barrel which contained our old-fashioned mix. We send our 25-gallon barrels to Charleston for a fellow that makes that great old-fashioned syrup for us. He sent the barrels back after they've been dumped.
He ages it for like 3 months or something like that.
He ages the old-fashioned syrup
in our bourbon barrels, in our used bourbon barrels, and then sends the bourbon barrels, the used ones that he had syrup, and back to us, and then we charge those up with
the
dark
bourbon.
cast bourbon blend. It's a little slightly more 53s in there to give it a more rounded flavor.
Interesting. And how long is it sitting in that
we have
old-fashioned
that
barrel?
Do that for 6 months.
Yeah,
Oh wow, so
that's quite a while.
that's not just a hey, toss it in, toss it
No.
out.
No, it was 6 months.
We put 2 batches away, and I think they're about a month apart, like 5 and 6 months
Mhm.
age.
Yeah,
Interesting.
and then we pulled that out, put it in bottle, and barrel strength.
So it's 114.4 proof.
Yes.
and
Which
it's delicious.
It is delicious. It does not drink like 114 proof, and
And,
I tend to like sweeter things in general.
Right.
It's not like you're drinking syrup, but it just
Right,
has
yeah.
a really great sweetness. You pick up a little more of the nuance from the old-fashioned syrup, all the flavors that went in there, but really a great product. So
it's-
hopefully more of that to come
Right.
down
Yeah.
the line somewhere. Any other products like that on the horizon? That's the big ones I know. And then
That's
Florida
Florida Straight.
Florida Straight coming out.
Florida Straight. So that'll be a new label.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, different label, new product. It's going to be bottled at 88 proof.
And then hopefully a clear rum, overproof clear rum.
We'd
Definitely.
love to have that.
Yeah.
I think also another option. We have had barrel finished gins. Right? We did our first round of barrel finished gins was white vermouth and red vermouth barrels. That's all since gone, and we've done bourbon barrels and port wine barrels from the St. Sebastian winery.
We aged our gin in those.
Interesting. Yeah. The barrel finishes on gins is really big thing, and it's like someone will almost drink like a sipping whiskey or something like that. So, well, cool. Well, I appreciate it, guys. I've got a ton of anonymous emails from people asking for the clear overproof rum. They're all named Blake, but I appreciate it, and thanks for doing this. It's been a great time.
Thank you.